Hello everybody and welcome to The Footballer's Mind. I am here with Alex Inglethorpe, mentor, good friend, my under-18s coach at Tottenham Hotspurs and now Academy Director at Liverpool. Thank you for being on, Alex.
Pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to come and visit.
So Alex, we were talking about perspective outside.
Yeah.
Very interesting word. We just watched a little bit of the 21s, had the 16s and 18s. Your son's playing for the 16s, got a nice little hat trick. If you look back on yourself, do you have any perspective on your journey into coaching and becoming a sporting director or academy director at Liverpool?
Yeah, I think always try hard to look forwards, not backwards, and I think there are certain moments that maybe you would, you look back, and I think certainly for me, I think reflecting on the people that I've worked with, or the opportunities that I've had, that you try and do it without being a dinosaur or be a bore. I do think it's more important to look forwards than backwards. That said, I think I came through at a time where I was really very, very fortunate as a coach, because I think I coached the whole way through my playing career and local grassroots teams. So I think sometimes it can be really hard now to come to Liverpool and start your career here, because there's a lot of scrutiny on you. I was at a time when there was nothing, literally it was me, a group of lads at Horsley Football Club, and I think it was a really safe place to make mistakes and to learn. And also sort of like that, again, fortunate that there was no internet, so you didn't have a constant stream of Arne Slot sessions or Klopp sessions or Guardiola sessions or Arteta sessions. It all felt very, if you could get at that time, I think the only thing you could probably get, the only resource was maybe sort of like a video of Saki's 4-4-2, and that was it. There wasn't anything else out there. So I think that it was pretty much about your relationship with coaching and not much else. So I'm very grateful to have come through at a time when I now need to become a version of the coach that I wanted to become.
And looking back at it, with what spirit did you go into that chapter? What sort of energy were you bringing to the table? Or didn't you know you were just...
Youthful naivety. You think you don't know what you don't know, and it's all full steam ahead, and you look back and you think, sometimes with pride and often with embarrassment around some of the things you did or some of the decisions you made. But I think when you're young, and as you get older, I think it's easier to accept you just don't know that you don't know. It's far easier for me now. You wake up and I don't know the answer to something, and I genuinely don't know. I'll ask someone cleverer than me, who probably will. I think when you're young, you're a bit more bullish. So you bring a lot of energy, but sometimes, not enough wisdom to back that up with. And
with the perspective that you have now and the experiences that you have had, how do you set the atmosphere up here in Liverpool so that the coaches can go and have a sort of freedom to make the mistakes and become better coaches under the big pressure of being at Liverpool?
Well, I think that's probably the point, isn't it? I think when you get to here, you've got to have earned the right to be here. I feel that my time as a coach, whether that was at Leatherhead or is it Horsley or Lewisham College, Leighton Orient, Exeter, then Tottenham, sort of 15, 16, 17 years to earn the right of being here. So, I don't think I should have done my learning at a place like Liverpool. I think Liverpool's a destination that you get to and you get asked to be a part of when you've done well. And I think it's the same for the younger coaches here. They're young, but a lot of them have been doing this for a long time. They're more specialist in the age groups that they're taking than I am. They're the wisdom in the room. I think I accept that. Someone that's been working with the under 12s for a long time. You're managing junior. Mini soccer. It's a first time into the senior game, managing boys that go from middle school into a secondary school. You're managing sort of like the beginning or the start of probably puberty, or some boys are starting to grow. So I think that to deal with all of that, I've got a coach that's been doing that for the last 6-7 years. I've not spent 6-7 years as an under 12 coach. I think he's got a probably far better antennae around what that actually means and the challenges that the boys and the parents face in that age group. I think he's the expert in the room, not me.
I understand that. So take us through then what you're trying to build. If you can sort of tell us the level that Liverpool work at. Are you starting at the foundation level? Are you starting at schools? Do you have an under 8s, under 9s?
Yeah.
What's your work schedule like, and who do you have to look after?
Well, I think it'll be similar as most academies. You'll have a career academy, and then you'll have your 9s to 16s, and you've got your beginning of the PDP phase and all the rest of it. So I think the structure would be fairly similar across all academies.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of an environment, which is a well-worn sort of phrase or word that's used, I think you're only as good as the people, and I think, so I think I'm quite careful around who would work here, but I think that it's like a jigsaw. Everyone, I feel, adds significantly to the environment that we work in. And I've also been very, very fortunate to be a club that's had an awful lot of stability over a relatively long period of time. I've had Arne Slott's my third manager in 12 years. There's not many academy managers or academy directors that could probably say that. I've had one set of owners, I've had 2 or 3 sporting directors, so I think that I've been very, very fortunate to be a club that's had a plan. I feel very grateful to have been a part of that plan, but also, it's been consistent, and as you know in football, that isn't something which is very usual. Things that don't tend to be consistent. The plan changes, the players change too often, this changes, that changes, staff changes, but actually it feels like it has been a very consistent time, and like I said, I'm very grateful to have been a part of it.
And to create that environment and bring the right people in, what do you look for in a person from a leadership standpoint, from a humanistic standpoint? What attributes are you looking for?
I think everyone's going to be different. I've always thought that you need different characters, and hopefully you need a blend. I don't want everyone to be mini versions of me as coaches. I like the fact that kids have different personalities and different people. You remember at Tottenham, I think that part of the beauty when I worked alongside yourself or Sam, who's here with us, I think was the fact that there were, we were talking about Chris Ramsey earlier.
Yeah.
I've got far more, I always respected him hugely, but I've got far more appreciation. He was miles ahead of me as a coach. But I didn't appreciate it at the time. I didn't appreciate the piece or the part that he played in the production and helping to produce players in the way that I probably appreciate it now. And I think you have people like Perry Suckling and Trevor Webb, and I just think it was more around the blend of people that you have, certainly rather than the volume. And I just think there were sort of like complementary skills, and I think that's what I've taken from my time and certainly tried to instill here is I don't want everyone to be the same. I think it's really healthy when you as a young player have access to lots of different people who are all probably messaging the same thing or the same messages, I guess, but in slightly different ways. I think it really helps when young people have access to adults who, I think are inspirational.
And you talked outside about giving that experience of a lifetime to the scholars, the players coming through the academy. Having that team, how important is it having that diverse team? Because looking back on my career, having you or Ricardo or John to pull me into an office pulled a lot out of me and also pushed my boundaries in a good way. At the time, maybe I didn't quite understand it, but looking back at it, I'm thankful that I had those experiences. So how do you, as pivotal as it is, how do you engineer the atmosphere so that the players understand that at the moment it's happening?
But they probably don't in the same way as you didn't. You know, I thought you were an amazing player to work with, but a really tough individual to know or not know, from a coach's point of view, whether you got through. You know, I think hugely respectful, but you didn't let people in easily. Which and again, that was a massive lesson for me that, you know, you get older and you realise it's probably not one size fits all, is it? You have to approach different people in different ways, and if not you, then find someone that can. But I thought that, I suppose, yeah, we want our scholars to have a meaningful time here. We want every boy to have a meaningful time, but also it is a high performance environment. It is something which is around trying to produce players for our first team. The point I made to you outside, which I thought was, I've got slightly better at articulating over the years, is, you know, we're an academy, and I can only really promise to have try and have the best youth experience you can have. I can't promise Anfield, I can't promise the first team access, I can't, because that's not something which is really within my. What I can say is that I think it takes a long time to look back afterwards, and I think the point I made to you and Sam was that I don't know whether you reflect on your career until maybe you're a bit older and maybe you've got grandkids and you're sitting there and they're asking you the question about your own career. And if you talk about what you achieved as a youth player, and by achieving I mean you played regularly in the under 18s, and I know you went on to play professionally, but just for youth, and you're thinking you played with and against some of the best players that, you know, of that generation. You'd have played probably, if you asked your grandkids to name the 5 most impressive clubs in Europe, you probably played against them. And you think, well, you won without knowing that you've won. If you know, if winning is about having the best youth career that you can have, you and Sam absolutely won. Now, the senior career, there's a little bit of luck that's involved. You've got to be right place, right time. You know, it's suddenly a global market, and therefore it's a lot harder, and you're talking about the 0.00001%. So I'm less inclined to sort of talk around the senior career, but if you're in an academy, I think it's so important that you realise that if you just take it for what it is, and it's an experience to show how you can be, or how good you can be, or talented you can be as a youth player, the quicker you can realise actually you've been, you know, unbelievably successful as you could probably ever imagine to be, I think it makes it easier to move on from that and put it in a nice place, or its rightful place, where actually you can reflect it and think, I achieved. Or, you know, the 5-year-old version of you would undoubtedly have taken everything that you achieved in your youth career. And like I say, the senior career sits outside of that, and there's a lot of circumstances you can't quite control. I don't think enough boys do that, and if they do, I think it maybe they just leave it a little bit late to realise exactly where it should sit.
I do agree on that point, and an important component are the parents. And last time I came here, I saw there was an in-house psychologist. I know you're doing certain things or bringing certain people into the building, but how do you personally conversate with the parents and try to teach them about the system, about the journey of the child, and how do you bring people in to do that as well?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is to try and have all the staff aligned in the messaging, because it's not just on me. I've got an awful lot of talented staff here who have conversations with parents. So I think the more consistent we are with our message, the more consistent we are with what we can actually promise and not promise. I've got some talented people who I think are very, very honest with parents in terms of the inductions. But the truth is, I think that unless you live it, for some parents, I think that in the sitting down in the induction, everything seems to make sense. You'll be nodding, you'll be, yeah. but also it's quite an emotional, you're talking about people's children, you're talking about their sons. And it's only normal that if a son is let go, or if a son is out of the team but not playing, then the rationale tends to leave, and rightly so, because you're talking about your child. So, I think that there has been, and it probably has always been that way, and it will always be. I would have thought that all the time that you're giving what is ultimately quite a subjective opinion on someone else's child, whether they can play football. It is only an opinion. Oh my gosh, we've been wrong plenty of times in the past. We'll be wrong plenty of times in the future. It's only an opinion, and I suppose that's why it's quite hard to take. If you're at school and maths teacher says you failed a test, it's probably quite objective. These are the questions, these are the answers, you've either passed or you failed, depending on how many of the answers you got correct. Football's not like that. Me and you could go and watch a game outside and say who's the top 3 players and who's the bottom 3 players in a game, and we'd have 6 different names, I'm sure.
And how would you conversate with your own child? He's a footballer himself and he's coming through the academy. What are important points that you have to look in the mirror and say out loud, so that you don't forget, hey, I'm a father, I'm not just a coach?
Yeah, but he's not a footballer, is it? He's got a son, first and foremost. And I suppose it's his dream, not mine. I don't need to vicariously live through him. Mm-hmm. I've got plenty of lads here that I can watch play, and I've played football myself. I don't need to live it through him. If he wants to do it, then he has to find a way himself, and I can't take away the truths of football. Someone more than likely at some point is going to get brought in to take your shirt. A coach is going to work with you who doesn't like you, or doesn't see it in the same way as you. But you've got to find a way. You're going to get injured. You're going to do this. You have to find a way. I can't and don't want to remove the hurdles that are there. And the temptation, I suppose, probably for me more, but certainly for every parent, is to try and do that. I don't want to do that. I just want him to give it his best, work hard, in whatever he chooses to do, whatever his passion is. I want him to give it. I want him to be all in. And if his passion tomorrow is something different, then I think you just want that for your child, just to be all in and enthusiastic and energised by something. And again, that's how I saw you play. That's exactly how I saw Sam play as well. And there's a lot more distractions now. It's a lot easier to be sat in front of a tablet or a phone or a TV and possibly have access to things that I didn't have those challenges. I don't think you would have had those challenges in quite the same way. So it is a little bit more. It is perhaps more difficult now to have that one thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. But I just want him to give his all. If he gives his all, then if he's good enough, we'll get there. If he isn't, then he'll have to enjoy it and go back to the conversation have with you. While I look around and think, I did the best I could, it was amazing, and what a fantastic experience. Move on.
And I've heard you mention how it's not necessarily what you say, it's the timing of what you say. Is that correct? Do you have those sort of drives where you go, I want to say something to him, but...
all the time, I get it wrong loads. And so, do you know what, as soon as I say I know I got it wrong, I know I can tell by... like I say, I'm a work in progress when it comes to being a footballing parent. And all the advice I can give to anyone else is sometimes hard to take yourself. And sometimes probably too honest, probably sometimes wrong time. It's... I think you just have to sometimes just acknowledge and think, do you know what, I really wish I did it. I'll do it differently next time. I just sit there and shut up or say nothing.
Because it interests me in a way when I look back at my career and then I look back to the conversations I had with my parents and my father. And
what were they like?
How would I say? I would say I never understood what was happening. That was probably the biggest problem, because he'll say something and he'll mean it with all his heart for the best, but in that moment I'm not sure that would have been the best thing to say. But in hindsight, it's great advice.
Did you tell him that?
I think my personal problem with my father, and I don't think it's a problem, I think you grow up and you humanize your parents and you realize, and as much as in our culture we have respect for our elders, you mature a little bit and you think of them a little bit differently. I don't think he's a conversation type. He's more the say it and move on type.
I didn't have that many conversations with your dad, but I do have this real memory of him on the touchline.
Yeah.
Happy memories of him on the touchline. But yeah, he's
he shouted a lot of run on the touchline and in the house. So if I was able to come to him and talk about a certain situation or tactically, I remember it was just run.
I was saying the same thing to you.
Yeah, just get up and run. And I was like, okay, that now makes sense, which is react to the situation.
Okay.
Just do your best.
Not just run.
Not just run. Be positive.
Okay.
Just get up from the tackle. You know, if you're given the pass away, do the right thing.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah, good advice.
it's good advice in his own way, but I realise that now he's that type of person that he just says it, or you ask him a question and he moves on. And the best thing is to take away from that is ponder it yourself, and eventually you'll find the answer. But as a kid, I think it's a little bit more difficult. But I'm understanding. The more I'm growing up, the more I'm understanding where he's come from and the society that he grew up in and the culture he had to shift from and the people he had to leave. So, you know, coming over to here is a different system.
Which has a hell of a story, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a big story, you know. I think the one that did it was when I realized how much, I've never been to prison, but he was put wrongly in prison by Saddam Hussein, and they were imprisoning anybody and everybody, and then they'll imprison your whole family, and then they'll uproot them and the whole street, and then they'll imprison them. And some of the stories that he told me where, you know, there was kids in jail as well, that made me just perk up a little bit and go, hold on a second, there's more to this than just, oh, maybe he's not saying the right thing at the right time after a football game. So that's a very interesting point, and that's why I always try to question people in the game. And you have a son in the game, and rightly so. He's not just a footballer; he's a human being. So you are along the right lines. But going away from that, I'd like to know how the pressure is on you at the club. It's a very big club.
Mm-hmm.
You have obviously a little bit of stability with not many managers coming in and out, but nonetheless, there are managers coming in with different philosophies. What are your relationships with the managers and the higher ups, and how are they?
I think no one can put a pressure on me that is greater than the pressure I put on myself. I think, you know, and I feel again very, very fortunate to be in a club where I think there's different types of pressure. I've never ever felt pressure of a result here. Mm-hmm. So I've never once had an owner or sport director, manager question after a result. I've been very, very clear on my brief, which is to try and either produce players for the first team or generate players who I guess are sold so that we can support the first team. That's our job, that's my job. You know, the academy's role is to support the first team in any way that it can, and the most linear way of doing that is to have players that are playing in it, and whatever role that would be. So I think, you know, against Chelsea last week, I think we had 6 involved, and midweek in Champions League we had 8. So I know that we are supporting them, you know, and of course you'd like to support them with more Trents and more Curtises and more Cavines that can start every week, and last year that was Gerrard and Conor Bradley and whoever else. But I think that, you know, it's a big club, the bar is high. You know, they don't lose many games, you know, and they can't lose many games, and the supporters wouldn't expect them to lose many games. So the boys coming in have got to realise that it's you know, that there's an expectancy here that is probably greater than an awful lot of other clubs, and to prepare boys, staff, players for that is there's a pressure to that, and but it's something that I enjoy. I don't necessarily see it as a pressure. I see it as more like for me it's a bit more of a privilege. There'll be plenty of people. If I leave tomorrow, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who will gladly accept that pressure in my place. And like I say, I feel that the expectations I put on myself and the academy to deliver is, you know, no one's going to probably put the demand on me that I haven't put on myself.
Saying that, I've got a quote from our good friend John McDermott.
Okay.
I messaged him.
Did he swear at
No, he didn't swear, but I think he asked me for a little bit of money for the notes because he's doing work on my behalf.
Or at least a credit.
So he said, Alex has worked for years to become an expert in the field of developing young people and young footballers. And with every conversation we have, he's striving to become more expert. He's an excellent thinker who is capable of translating his thoughts onto the pitch and into his players, and similarly translating his ideas off the pitch. He has very high standards and understands the benefits of delayed gratification. He's prepared to say no or critique a performance that falls below the capabilities of each individual. He's in it for the players, not himself. Alex knows what excellence looks like and has developed an idea on how to achieve excellence, developing players and people. There is a very obvious school of thought when I am at Liverpool's academy or speak to their players. Tell him hello.
I spoke to him this morning. Tell him myself. He can speak for himself. That's very nice. That's typically very articulate from John. The truth is, and it's not going to be a sort of like, I get the feeling that if I speak about John, and I'll probably mention him more here at Liverpool than perhaps I should have done, but I can't overstate the importance he's had on me and my career, but certainly me as a person, and you know, I consider him a friend. But you know, I think for a long time I've been sort of, there's no question in my mind he's the best in the business when it comes to developing and football thinking. So there is an element of constantly feeling like I'm hanging on to the coattails there a little bit and trying to keep up, because you know, quite often I'll come away from a conversation thinking, I've got so much to get to that level. I've got an awful long way to go. And you'll know that because you know, both you and Sam would have spent as much time speaking with or in his company, so you know exactly how special he is in what he does, and he'll do it in his way. And you know, so again, just I think sometimes you whether it's, you know, I feel very lucky to have, my career has collided with a few people who I think have been really, really important to me, and I just feel so fortunate to have been at a club at the same time as they've been at a club, because so that is luck. You don't get to choose necessarily. If I join another club tomorrow, you don't necessarily get to choose who's there at that time. You are just there at that time. You know, if I feel my 12 years here or my 7 years at Tottenham or whatever it was, the people that I was actually fortunate enough to meet, and that definitely includes you guys in terms of, you know, my first youth team there, or second one actually that yourself and Sam were a part of, and all the boys that are still in touch, and the staff, and then, you know, that's here. I just feel that you just literally, and I know that you can use the word luck sometimes too many times, but I do feel incredibly lucky and blessed that my career has collided with so many talented people who I think I've probably got as much from as I've been able to give.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate your time, Alex, having us over here anytime. I can message you, you'll call me back in due time when you're not too busy, and always the door's welcome. And from a personal standpoint, I always look back on the people I've had in my life, and when I look back, I look at you or John or Luke Williams who coached me. I would say the ones that really wanted it for themselves, but also for me, showed. At the time I may not have understood it, but after all these years, I really, really appreciate it. And you're one of them. So I really appreciate the fact that you always put 100% into your work. Always
As did you, no question in that. And Sam, I'm going to mention Sam is off camera, but
thank you.
Definitely put everything into it. Would you have changed anything?
I would have loved to have perspective, a little bit more perspective as a youngster.
Yeah.
Sort of bird's eye view of the situation. It would have mellowed me out a little bit more, but I can't change the fact that my journey aligned with so many good people.
You laugh a lot more now, doesn't it?
Interesting.
This is a shocking laugh, to be fair.
I've been ill the last few
But
days.
you does
That's
serious
laugh,
for
for
sure.
sure. Yeah, you were super serious at times,
Mm.
and it was always, I think, whenever I see you, that's the bit that I like or enjoy about your company the most now. Is I think that you seem a lot more relaxed, a lot more at ease. Don't take. I'm not sure you ever took yourself seriously, but it was a definite, and I like it now when I see you. I think you do, you smile loads, you laugh loads, you seem very at ease, very relaxed. So it's nice to see that journey that you've been on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's impressive. It's impressive that you're doing this. It's impressive that you drive up and. What time did you leave this morning?
5 a.m. Picked up my good friend Ife, the cameraman, from uni. Then we went over to Sam, and then came up here to see you. So yeah.
So you've still got that level of commitment.
Yes.
That level of drive. You're
Yeah.
just channeling it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, it's taken a little while stepping away from the game to find myself. I should have had a lot more conversations before I stepped away. I sort of stepped away and then came here and then asked the questions. But I think as a player you're so focused on the game, and I was the type to be focused on the last minute.
Yeah. Do you miss it?
Yes, I do miss it, but I don't think I would miss it a lot more if I didn't have the purpose that I have now.
Yeah.
So I have a lot more purpose on the life I want to build, and football doesn't necessarily play a big part in that. It will do eventually, because I'll always be drawn to the game, and I always want to give back to the game. Don't want to just leave that experience hanging. But I have a purpose now, and that doesn't make me sit down and think about the game and think about, I'd love to be out on the pitch. It makes me think in a different way.
Do you find that purpose now, Sam? I'm allowed to ask questions also.
Of course.
What do I miss it? Do I have a purpose in what I do now?
No, I just think that it's a massive challenge now for players who come out of the game. So I think that some ways, if you, so I want to just to give a bit of context. What I mean is, if you come out at, say you get a first year pro, takes you to 19, 20, that sort of age. If you end up coming out then, I wonder whether it's a little bit easier because you can join the other 20, 21-year-olds like what I'm going to do now, and that's quite normal for most kids. What age did you finish?
I think mentally, about a year, 2 years ago,
Okay.
I'd say.
So at what age?
but I really stopped at
32.
33. But 32, so
32. That's harder
Yeah.
to find another purpose.
For sure. I think my experience is different to Yasser's, where obviously where Yasser was playing League One, Swindon, that was a time where I was dropping down. I came out of Barnet and then I dropped down to non-league a lot earlier.
Yeah.
So I had that time to supplement another passion in coaching a lot earlier than the likes of some others that are now finishing their career. So yeah, at the time, and mentally I had to come through my own challenges and coming through the age group that I did and seeing so many people be so successful, and then me going into the non-league environment, that was tough, but not seeing it back then. But I got 5-10 year head start on some of the boys that are now looking to get into coaching. So it's been a process. I certainly feel that passion and purpose has come over time. John Mack brought me into the coaching. He said, look, I know you've gone into non-league, but let's get you back, let's get you finished your badges, because I never finished my badges at Spurs, because I went on loan to Torquay.
Yeah.
Never got to finish it. He brought me in, finished off your level 2, got me on the B licence. I went into schools, coached kids with disabilities, blind, autistic, ADHD, everything. And off the back of that, I got the under 9s, I got the under 11s, and then done the 15s for 7 years. So I had time for that passion to develop and grow. I had a head start, and I certainly do have that passion and that sense of purpose now, within coaching for sure. But I think for me, I love working with people, I love interacting with people, and I'm always going to be somebody that's going to want to be out on the grass. I don't want to be in the office. I want to be affecting people's lives like you have done on ours. I certainly draw inspiration from yourself, from John, who've been father figures in our life, even from afar. Even though you've come up this side of the world, you have had massive impact on all of our lives. And you was like a dad to us, and you always have been. And I want to be a vessel of what you have done for us in our lives to other people's, and I'd like to think that I'm on the start of my journey in doing that. And,
Yeah, you're well into it. I just think thank you for saying that. But I think I worry a little bit around it's the generation of players that don't have the stellar careers, that finish 27, 28, 29, 30, suddenly have responsibilities of mortgage, have responsibility of maybe family, whatever it's going to be. And then it's like, what now?
Yeah.
Trying to find a second career, it's wonderful that you're embarking on that and you're investing well and truly into your coaching. But not everyone is going to have either your passion and drive to do it or your sort of foresight to have started your journey a bit earlier. And so I do worry a little bit around those players that finish. And then what's next? How am I going to do this?
It's really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
I speak to most of our youth team players, and there's some in and around our age group that are having their real struggles at the moment. Who have families, not just trying to get mortgage, but boys that have actually even played in the Prem and had a lot of games, a lot of appearances, even represented the national team. Don't know what to do with themselves now, and it's also obtaining a lifestyle which they're no longer able to do. Again, finding that sense of purpose that can be mentally draining, and it's difficult. And I don't listen. It's a common topic about the aftercare of football, but I don't know. I certainly think that during your career, there's got to be a point where you've got to try and fuel something else alongside what you're doing, which is so difficult because you're trying to perform at the highest level in front of millions of people. It's tough, but it's hard.
For me personally, I think two things have helped. We spoke about putting yourself in painful situations, and it's weird how you said,
I'm doing that now.
oh, just send me that card. Send 5, 4, 2. We got to pay for that.
You're doing great. Keep going.
We'll send the Orlando's to the training ground. It's actually putting yourself in a painful situation, and you were saying that about me a little bit. I like that. I called Luke Williams, and I told him, I'm thinking of going down the coaching or the management or business, and he said to me on the phone, "You're gonna suffer either way." And I said, "Alright, sweet," because I'm gonna suffer anyway, so I might as well choose one and suffer in it.
Yeah.
That's one, but two also is I look forward in time and then I look back at myself and I go, if I stopped any earlier, would I be any happier around 40 or 45? Or 50? If I stopped at 25, at 26 and said, you know, let me make a real go at something, even if it was a lie for me, that I was going to go down the finance or I was going to go become the next.
Maybe you never know, will you?
And so when I look forward and I look back, I go, no, at that age, I'd love to have had what I've had. I'd love to have gone through it. Love to have had these experiences.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. So those two things combined with a sense of purpose, finding out what you want to do in life, what the life you want to build, has really helped me. And I hope it helps. I hope talking about it, I hope meeting with other players. You know, the other day I had a Zoom call with Stephen Corker. I've been on the phone with Callum. I hope others will get there as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I think, as you life, I think as you get a bit older, you realise that life, I think it's about collecting. You know, you don't take anything with you when you go, other than you want to be there, thinking about all the amazing experiences. It's like a photo album, isn't it? You want to sort of like have these incredible experiences and these memories to recall, to have made it all worthwhile. And I think that if you've been lucky enough to be involved in football or any sport that you're really passionate about, it does give you some incredible memories to fall back on, which, you know, whether it's, you know, however you want to sort of like reflect on your life, I think that having had those experiences, or, you know, maybe you've found out what you're capable of doing, I think that's what sport can do. Sport can answer some questions about how far you can push your body, how far can you push your mind, how resilient are you going to be, how competitive can you be, how can you interact with other people in your team, or how can you, you know, sort of like support yourself and others in situations and day to day. And I think it tests you, which is why, you know, I think so many people love watching sport or love being involved in sport, whatever that might be. But I do think that it does provide you with an opportunity to test yourself. And, you know, I suppose it's then what you replace that with once that's gone. And for you two, you did a great job, I think. And
I've really enjoyed also the memories are becoming a lot clearer as I'm growing up and stepping away from the game.
Well, you put them into a little folder. I think you also, you sort of like, you know, we were talking earlier about some of the, you know, the memories that we've had, whether it's tournaments or conversations or whatever else. And I think that you reflect on life a little bit differently, don't you? And you put it in its rightful way, and sometimes you might embellish a memory, or you might perhaps just gloss over a little bit with things that weren't quite, and that's permissible as well, isn't it? That's all right. And you know, you might put the more painful memories in a slightly different place and probably contextualise them as well. But, you know, I just think that's the privilege of getting older. You organise your brain a little bit differently, and you become a bit more chilled about it all.
I remember, I pretty much remember every conversation you had, whether it was with you or John walking past the office. And I remember, I was a pro at the time, so I was working, well, I should have been with Clive at the time, but obviously most of our boys were out on loan, and I was finding myself back in the U team working with yourself. And come back on loan from Cheltenham, and you pulled me in, you said about Histon, who were in the conference Premier at the time. And I remember, I thought I signed up, you know, all the boys are, you know, out on loan, League One, League Two, you know, Histon, conference. I'm a pro at Spain. I remember you said to me at the time, I said, don't neglect dropping down into those levels, because you can have a great career and you can have great memories and forge another career on the side. And I felt like at the time, you're taking the mick here. And I remember the conversation so clearly. But those harsh conversations back then, you would have been a critical friend. John Mack speaks about the critical friend. But it was truth, and I think if it wasn't for those things that probably I didn't want to hear at that age, I would have had I've had some fantastic memories at National League, conference level, and back when you said it, just going back, how you doing that? The last thing I want to do is go and play in the conference. I've had some fantastic memories and developed a passion within that, so
No, I do remember. I think it's sometimes a challenge for those boys that have only ever known what would be considered a top Premier League club. I think you've got to be careful you don't become a footballing snob. A bit different for me, I suppose. I'd grown up, hadn't really played a few games at Watford, then Leighton Orient. So I suppose I'd never had that top club experience until I came to Tottenham as a coach. So for me, it was probably a bit more normal to talk about Histon or to talk about the National League because I coached it, I played in it, I played at Ryman 2 South for Leatherhead. So for me, it was quite a normal experience, and perhaps easier for me to see the value that those sort of experiences can give you. Harder for you if you've not done it. But at some point, I guess you'll have a conversation with someone, and hopefully you'll deliver it better than I did. But you will
spot on that.
Well, no, but the message will be the same. But you'll just find a way of delivering it in a way, or the timing will be better, or the location will be better, or the words you choose will be better fitting. But I think that and also I suppose it's not easy to hear those words sometimes, is it? It's not easy to sort of be told that, come on, this will be good for you.
Yeah.
Don't see it as a negative, see it as a positive.
Yeah.
What's the alternative? You come and play, you make my team better as in the under 18s. With the greatest respect, I don't need you to make my team better, I want you to make you better. But not easy to hear, is it?
Not easy to hear, but served its purpose.
Yeah, I can see it recording now. It's like living the trauma. Is he getting his car and head towards his?
Do you know
Away from it.
Do you know what the mad thing is? The conversation aside, I did actually go alone to Histon. I only played 2 games.
Yeah.
The first game was against, I remember playing against John Terry's brother, Paul Terry. The second game was against Wrexham, Trevor Sinclair. Well, Frank Sinclair played centre half.
Oh wow.
I remember that. It's going how far ago that was.
Frank's my age.
Oh yeah, he played centre half, played Wrexham. The first 2 games, I don't know if there'd been any conversation at Spurs with Histon, or they'd watched any of my games or come to any games. They put me on corners, they gave me free kicks, they gave me the number 10.
They thought they were getting Ryan Mason.
I don't know who they thought they was getting. I remember.
They watched the video until he put Ryan Mason.
Was this Seamus cutting up your clips and making you look unbelievable?
We had a free kick in the first 10 minutes. Coxie, give the free kick to Coxie. Honestly, I shanked it so far and high, it was unbelievable, but they knew nothing about me. I'm not sure that was the right load.
Comes with the reputation of Tottenham. Take it in the corner.
I was gone after 2 games, I was back after 2.
I'm surprised.
That's the whole thing in itself. I remember having an argument with John about the loan system. I was like, you got to go out there. That's why we're doing this session, so you can understand the loans.
Yeah.
And in the sessions, you were on purpose. You were trying to positively impact it, but making us play Quango football, as they say, so you can understand.
I was doing this.
I can't remember whether it was you or John. I think it was primarily John, but
Let's just say it was John.
yeah, he's not there. But I remember them having a conversation about it, and I was like, no, I'm going to change. I'm going to change the system. And he looked at me. He was looking at me in such disgust. He said, I can't argue with this guy. 10, 20 years later, when we were having a coffee, I was like, John, you're all right.
Actually, you weren't one that you could. I admired that in you. You weren't one that you were going to change their mind.
Yeah.
What I do think on that one, that I remember thinking at the time that if you stay in a league for too long, you become a league.
Yeah.
So if you can be Luka Modric, and if you're Luka Modric and you're playing in whatever league it is within the pyramid, if you stay there long enough, at some point, if you know the centre half isn't going to give you the ball, or the full-back's not going to give you, or you're going to look, then you stop. You're not going to change your league. I think the league changes you eventually.
Yeah.
And what I do think is nice now is a lot more clubs. You know, I think probably seeing different types of players playing. I think it's a bit of an unfair stigma that, like I said, I'm not a footballist. I've played it all my life, so you know, I do think that there is a lot more football being played throughout the leagues. And I went to the Championship game the other day between Stoke and Norwich. It was a great game of football. Some really top footballers playing in it. You know, and there isn't a right or wrong way. I'd hate to think that all football is sort of like homogenised now, and that I go and turn on. If I turn on TV, I don't really want to see everything the same. You know, I don't want to see, you know, the same game being played by different teams in different colour shirts. I want to see different. I like it when a team plays different. Yeah. So that means that if someone's extreme, great. But if someone wants to go forward into a centre forward and get down the side of teams, and then also fantastic. You should be able to interpret the game any way you want. It's not a right or wrong way. It's a bit like you can listen to whatever music you want. You choose what your preference is, don't you? Yeah. And I think it's the same with football. You can. I like the fact that there is difference. I like the fact that, you know, it should be able to cater for all tastes, and you know, if you're a young lad growing up, you should be able to feel that I should be able to have a part to play within football. You just got to find the right team and the right coach, isn't it?
And that helps in your coaching journey as well, because you see the capabilities and incapabilities of the players. And it really helped me when I feel like I purposely, without knowing it, dropped down into non-league to go, I need to find a way out of football. But what is it? And then when you stand there and you see the football being played, you realise, hold on a second, this kid is actually trying his best, but he can't quite do it. And it makes you a better coach, because then you can go off.
And it's not just the kid. Sometimes it's how many times have you gone to a pitch and played on a pitch where you think, it doesn't matter, we can't play football on this?
Yeah.
It's the middle of January. You know, you're not walking. You know, Steve Perrin's got a lovely expression around. You know, you walk through the pitch rather than on it. And you know, there's lots of pitches I played on where you walk through. You know, you run through the pitch. You're not running on top of it. You're running through the middle of it, because you just you say your foot goes in and you can no longer see you know that you're not on top of it. You can't see the top of your boot sometimes. You're thinking, well, it doesn't matter what team you are. You're not playing great football on that. So sometimes players just have to adapt to the situation and the environment that you're in. It is just around that, isn't it?
But you do need to see that. You need to feel it. I don't know if there is a need, but it really has helped me. When I go and coach a kid, I have a lot more understanding, because I felt it. I felt the different change rooms. I felt a Premier League Academy change room, I felt a league football change room, I felt an international change room, and then I felt a non-league change room. And I said, okay, it makes sense why a top player then can go and look at a team or try to coach somebody and go, and he's not quite getting it, because the top player has always been surrounded by top class talent.
Yeah. It's definitely an advantage, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an advantage, and at the time it does hurt, but hey, we all suffer to get to where we want to be. Yeah. Just like this interview. Exactly. We're going to cut out. We cut out his joke, which was very good, Ife, and put mine there. Alex, thank you.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Well done, you.